Speaking list?
I would like to
Can you
be.
confirm?
I'd like
Okay.
to be on the speaking list as chair.
OK, un instant. OK, j'ai M. Leslie qui était en train de parler la dernière fois. J'ai M. Messieux, j'ai Mme Châtel,
Can I
j'ai
also get
Mme
on,
Collins. Qui d'autre? M. Van Couverden,
Can I also get on the speaking list?
M. Soroka, M. Deltel. Soroka, Deltel. OK. Alors, on n'est pas à huis clos, là. En effet, on traite des travaux futurs, mais on n'est pas à huis clos, je tiens à le dire aux membres. Et puis...
Point of order.
yes.
Oh, translation.
Non? Est-ce que vous m'entendez maintenant? Non?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? English? So I'll start again. We are continuing with our discussion on the motion that we had before us at the end of the Monday's meeting. I have a long list. So we are not in camera, even if we were discussing future work. And I think that this is a meeting that will do some of the work of the subcommittee concerning planning, and this is almost like a steering committee meeting. And Mr. Leslie, you had the floor when we finished Monday's meeting. So, if you like, and all those, I think that everything is working out. And Mr. Leslie, you may take up where you left off, if you like.
Chair, just to clarify, this is on the. So I have technically moved my amendment, or my sub-amendment?
Yes, and you were speaking to it.
Okay, excellent. Well, I appreciate.
Second, yeah, we'll distribute where we're at.
Should I wait until? I'll wait. I think it's important that people see the text in writing.
Oh, Mr. Mazier, I have good news for you. Yes. On the 18th, I mentioned that the Deputy Minister of ISED could not be here, but he's going to be here.
Hey, there you go.
So
The new one or the retired one?
with Tremblay, I guess he's the new one, but still, it's a Deputy Minister. We're getting a Deputy Minister as opposed to someone delegated by him. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Leslie.
I'm just. Will that Deputy Minister have answers, or is he too new?
I can't tell you that. I can't answer that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I was speaking to earlier this week regarding my proposed sub-amendment, which I will read out once again for anybody watching and for committee members that now have it in front of them, is an addition to the end of Clause B on the proposed motion that states, but none shall commence until the committee has heard from Minister Boissonnault in relation to the study of the factors leading to the recent fires in Jasper National Park. Now, Mr. Chair, I think all of us who have been around this committee table for the numerous meetings we've had on what I think is a very important issue, both to the people of Jasper, to the people of Alberta, and really to all Canadians, particularly those that live near other national parks that are somewhat concerned about the potential impact of the pine beetle and more broadly speaking, wildfires on their livelihoods, their way of life, their families, and their communities. The fact of the matter is that these fires were catastrophic, and we are still seeing those effects that I mentioned on families and businesses. The community of Jasper, I think, has demonstrated remarkable resilience in the face of destruction. A third of the town burned, nearly $1 billion in damages, and 2,000 people left homeless. And the process of recovery has really just begun. Obviously, will take quite a while, but in terms of our work in investigating the factors that led up to that, I think we need to get this right. And I think time is really of the essence here. And I think we need to ask ourselves a critical question. Is there a reason that Minister Boissonnault can't find the time out of his schedule to come to our committee for 1 hour prior to December 4th, I believe was the proposed date?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, just to clarify.
Yeah, I have no idea. That's what they told us was.
No, December 4th is the
December
proposed.
4th, he's, I mean, unless the committee changes its mind and asks him to come at a later date, he can come on December 4th. And in my mind, I've slotted him in for
So
December 4th.
we couldn't possibly ask him to come earlier, though? Is that what you're
No,
insinuating?
December 4th was the first opportunity, as I'm told.
First. So Mondays and Wednesdays are pretty busy for him.
I don't know.
The reality is the residents of Jasper, those that have lost their homes, the family members of those that are putting up people that have lost their homes, the friends, the neighbors that are doing just the same, those that have lost their businesses and their entire livelihoods, probably currently battling with insurance companies over all of this, potential legal and accounting fees. They're waiting for answers. They're waiting for some sort of a solace that we can do better in the future. And I think they would believe that we must do better in the future. Obviously, in any tourist community like Jasper, local businesses are the lifeblood of the economy. Where I'm from is much closer to Riding Mountain National Park, where I was just a few weeks ago, and that is the most important part of the community. The vitality is sustained by all of the jobs created locally, those they bring in for both jobs and for research. That's what makes our national park communities so important. And in my view, Jasper's residents, they need leadership right now. They need to understand what happened and how it will be prevented from ever happening again. And I'll be blunt. In talking to my colleague from the region in particular and some on the ground there are families that still don't know where they're going to live, that don't have direct, immediate friends and families that they can post up with for what is going to be a lengthy period of time. And small business owners there, they're at a loss. They're stuck. They have no revenue. They don't know what to do. They don't know whether they have the confidence to rebuild in the community. As I said earlier, they're battling with insurance companies. This is, I don't want to call it insurmountable because I believe in the Canadian entrepreneurship. I believe in Canadian people. So it is able to be overcome, but it is extremely difficult. And I think we need to recognize the fact of what, not only the moments of that fire overtaking that community, I think we need to respect the aftermath of it, the impacts that it has on all of the individuals I've just mentioned, and even just many of the tourists that want to go there, that have booked trips, that have had things changed. The people of Jasper are trying, and they will get back on their own 2 feet. But we need to do everything we can to support them, in particularly after acknowledging that we didn't do everything we could to prevent this catastrophic fire from happening. Now, we are told that there is a plan in place from the current government, that the federal government is working with provincial and municipal governments and Indigenous partners, which is excellent news. I think it's fantastic to hear that those efforts are being undertaken. But like any other government program or project, I'm always a little bit skeptical of the timeliness of the execution of that plan. We need to see that plan in action. And in my view, as per the reason for my sub-amendment to this motion, we need to hear directly from the minister that has now been appointed by the current Prime Minister as part of that effort to understand what happened, and more importantly, how we can rebuild that community and protect them from having this ever happen again. And we need to hear directly from that minister on how we are going to see a rebuild happen. And I'm not looking for vague announcements or news releases or even backgrounders or written statements. I want to see and hear directly from the minister, and I think all Jasperites do, I think members of this committee, broadly speaking, I think all reasonably want to hear what concrete steps are going to be taken and what that is going to mean to the people in terms of real timelines that are dealing with this devastation in real time. The people of Jasper simply need to know how the federal government is going to support them, how this recovery process will be coordinated, and for us as parliamentarians to ensure that we know where the pressure points are to apply the necessary pressure to ensure that it happens swiftly, that this isn't some forgotten disaster where the people that were directly impacted are just lost to time. Because, Mr. Chair, the fact of the matter is that time is critical on this particular topic. Now, we have heard, and I do appreciate the comments from the Prime Minister and the government more broadly, that this recovery for Jasper is a priority. But, like we all know, actions speak louder than words. Words mean very little to people that are dealing with such distress, financial, family, and otherwise. We are hearing that Minister Boissonnault, as per his December 4th at earliest appearance opportunity, he's too busy to attend this committee. And listen, if that means that Minister Boissonnault is spending all of his time on the ground talking to small business owners, talking to counselors for the community, talking to individuals that have been left homeless, and frankly, anybody else that has been impacted by this devastation, then I might be willing to accept that. Thus far, I have not seen any evidence that that is the case. And to me, it's not acceptable. So in my view, as a parliamentarian, as somebody that has done amongst my colleagues, I think a thorough and important and valuable and timely investigation into this matter, I think his appearance is essential, to put it mildly. And it's not just for the people of Jasper, but for anybody that's seen this issue online, on TV, on radio, or anywhere else, that thinks, yeah, this is important. This is my fellow Canadians facing real substantive challenges, and I want to see the outcome of it be real and be quick and be what we would expect of a government that was negligent in its responsibilities. Now, my understanding is that the minister has been given the title, the ministerial lead for Jasper. Now, obviously, titles are important, but the question must be, is that minister leading, or is this a show? Is he just merely sitting idly by? Now, to me, but I would love to hear it from him, whichever Randy wants to show up, his role should be about coordinating support, ensuring that the resources are flowing into the community, and most importantly, ensuring that Jasper's recovery is moving forward at the pace that the people on the ground deserve. As far as I can tell, and I'll look to my colleague from the region to perhaps make comments after, the people of Jasper are very much still waiting for answers on many critical fronts. What is the plan to support the local businesses that are struggling to get back on their feet with the loss of tourism or the actual physical devastation of a fire to their particular business or something related to their business? How much financial assistance is actually making its way into the hands of those that need it most? And broadly speaking, what is the federal government doing to ensure that Jasper remains on the front burner, that it isn't pushed to the back burner, that it's reconstruction, that the rebuilding of this notable, glorious national park, which I personally have the pleasure to have visited, and I think so many Canadians have. It is an iconic national park. Is it staying on the front burner, and will it forever? I think these are very reasonable questions. And perhaps more importantly, as we've heard through our investigation, with the fire coming from the south, there are still many, many dead pines standing within the national park. We are facing potential devastation with the wrong direction of winds to the rest of the community, to the other 2/3 that was left standing. So what is Parks Canada in particular doing to address these very real concerns? And in my view, the only way to actually address these issues, given that we've had a minister appointed responsible for the lead of Jasper, is to hear from that minister himself. So I think it's entirely reasonable that we ask this committee to convene to bring forward these very questions, to find out what he has discovered, you know, recognizing that he is a relatively new minister to the file, not that he may have never been to Jasper, but this is a new role. But I think, you know, we're weeks on now, and if the importance of this issue is as paramount as the government has claimed it to be, then the direction to one of the Randys is to go and understand the issues that are facing this community. I think it's entirely reasonable that at this point, even an update, that Minister Boissonnault is relatively up to speed on both in terms of the impact that he has witnessed in his travels and engagements with the community, and secondarily, where we are at with the plan to help Jasper rebuild. And I think we need to understand the specific details of those recovery efforts. We might not be the experts around this table, but we've certainly heard a lot about the challenges that led up to this. But I think it's important to be provided a public platform for Minister Boissonnault to provide the specifics and not just vague promises. In my view, and I think I can say for my colleagues at least, this is not the time for delay or spills. The people of Jasper, particularly the ones that have been directly impacted, need and deserve answers. And they need and deserve them now. Now, in my view, Minister Boissonnault's appointment here was an important step. I think it's a very real recognition of the devastation that has been caused to that particular community, to Jasper. But it is only a step. And if we are going to take this with the seriousness that it deserves, there are most definitely numerous steps needed, and it needs to be done in collaboration with locals. And that's his job. And I would love to hear directly from him how that is going. I think it is entirely reasonable. This is not a matter of politics. It's about a matter of lives and livelihoods, the ones that have been lost through this devastation and the opportunity to rebound into the future. It's a matter of understanding where Parks Canada went wrong and adjusting for the future. I couldn't imagine being put in the position of a fire personally. I have, my family, we've been in the position of floods. I don't want to compare the two, but fires are just simply devastating. Everything's lost. From your family photo albums, even if you had them on a USB or an old laptop, to the storage unit of your business, to any aspect of your life that we could all just really dream up and imagine. If what we owned and loved and lived disappeared, it's devastating. To me, it's one of the most devastating possible natural disasters. Not to mitigate the impacts or minimize the impacts of floods, but there's something more to it. And in my view, we shouldn't have to wait until December 4th for Minister Boissonnault to show up. And again, Mr. Chair, I would...
Monsieur le Président, je serais heureux de vous entendre dire que les lundis et les mercredis, lors de nos rencontres, le ministre Boissonnault est sur le terrain à Jasper en à s'entretenir avec les gens là-bas. Peut-être que le bureau pourrait nous fournir des précisions les lundis et mercredis, nous disant qu'il est...
I would just like to inquire with Mr. Leslie if he intends to filibuster the whole meeting, or
That's
if
not a
we,
point of order.
is it relevant to his motion?
It's, so we're speaking about Jasper.
Okay.
I personally,
You're capable of it.
I don't know.
Willing to do it.
This was the job Minister Boissonnault was appointed to do. And I will give credence and credit that he is new at it. But I don't think it's unreasonable, given the time crunch and necessity, for him to come and offer some sort of an update. And we know that governments are often slow to respond in general, but in particular to natural disasters. And I've seen this repeated over numerous circumstances over the years in my own home municipality and many municipalities that I represent. I think we probably all have, in some way, shape, or form, seen delays on a DFA claim from the province, going to the feds, waiting for the DFAA claim to come through, and debates on whether or not the receipts for the projects and the work undertaken were eligible or not eligible, and disputes between various levels of government. But the reality is, at the end of the day, there is only one taxpayer. Whether they're paying provincial, municipal, or to this big behemoth of a federal government, there is only one taxpayer. And I think we owe it to them to be as nimble and responsive and responsible with those dollars as possible. And that's why I think it's entirely reasonable to not wait a month, to have Minister Boissonnault be here as soon as possible, with the allowance that if he is in Jasper, I will accept that he can't be here that day. But we can't just keep pushing back his appearance because we're worried about political optics, as the individuals in Parks Canada once debated on whether or not they should do prescribed burns. Because I do believe, in a fully nonpartisan sense, that every member of this committee, and I think of the government, do want to see this recovery move forward in an expedited manner as possible. But I can only imagine, if your business is burned and remains closed, and you remain displaced with your family, and you were to watch delays in Ottawa, you would be frustrated. And I don't think it's unreasonable to blame them, any of those individuals impacted, to be frustrated. And I think it's reasonable to say that the people of Jasper are counting on us as opposition, to hold the government accountable and to demand answers, but more importantly, collectively, to make sure that the community is not forgotten, is not left behind. So I'd like to call on all members of this committee, regardless of the party, to vote in favor of this amendment, to make sure that we don't just push back all of the other work that we've been doing in this committee to try to make this issue go away. I think it is very reasonable that the minister could appear in mid-November, once we are back from our Remembrance Day ceremonies that we are all going to travel to across the country, rightfully and hopefully properly honoring all of those that have served in our armed forces. I'd like to think we could do it before the date that has been proposed. And we still, as far as I can tell, Mr. Chair, have not seen a confirmed statement of attendance. And I always get worried when they say they are going to attend, but as we get closer, something comes up. I think that's a tactic that is regularly undertaken by those that want to avoid any accountability. And in my view, it is time for the minister to appear.
Sorry, Mr. Leslie, I just want to interrupt to provide some clarification. We did get something in writing saying that he was available the 4th.
For sure?
Yeah, that's what it says in black and white, yeah.
Let's lock it in.
It is.
But,
unless the committee changes its mind and doesn't want to see him on the 4th. But
well, with the support of all members today, we could make it happen earlier. But separately, and I don't want to say more importantly, but perhaps
Point of
it
order,
is.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Vancouver.
I presume you have a speaking list?
I do.
Could I ask who's on the speaking list?
Yes, it's Mr. Mazier, Madame Chatel, Ms. Collins, yourself, Mr. Soroka, Mr. Deltel.
Okay, good. And Mr. Chair, just a point of, that's a question about procedure. If Mr. Leslie filibusters, would it delay the meeting with Randy Boissonneau, with Minister Boissonneau?
Not
Like
necessarily.
if it went on for a couple of meetings, would it potentially
If it went on
delay
for
that?
3 weeks, it would, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just, compared to the House, they're filibustering in the House as well. And at the
Yeah,
same
but it's
time,
not a
like,
point of order, but
we
I
could be
answered.
we could be meeting with the minister today, with the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Yeah. Well, you just would have
Okay,
needed to vote.
this is not a point of
You would
order.
have needed to vote
This is not a
actually
point
for
of order.
Mr.
And I'm
Chair-
going to, I have
Chair.
to stop this. I have to
Point of
stop.
order.
Excuse me. I have to stop this exchange
Point of
right
order.
now. Is it a point of order?
Well, it's a point of clarification, actually. Mr. Vancouver seemed to be a little bit confused about what we're actually debating here today. So we'll repeat the motion. He actually had the paper copy right in front of him. We distributed it
He
right at the
knows
very
what we're
first of the
talking
meeting.
about. Okay, I may
Excuse me?
have to suspend.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Okay. I suspend for a few minutes.
Shut down and adjourn debate on this. I think we could have wrapped this up long ago, and perhaps we could have got Minister Boissonneau here much, much earlier. I think that would have been a fantastic opportunity for us to show cordiality, but really come together and understand that we want to have the best. But I think, importantly, the second reason as to why I am moving this sub-amendment is that I, broadly speaking, do have serious concerns about the pre-study on Bill C-73. Now, I understand that there are certain stakeholder groups that want us to conduct a pre-study as a priority to them. And I also understand that we don't know when the next election is going to be. And people want to have legislation that they care about dealt with prior to that. And listen, I understand that, Mr. Chair. But the reality around this table is that none of us know when that next election is going to come. Now, we don't know. There's rumors circulating around this place, around Parliament Hill, around social media that the Prime Minister may prorogue Parliament at any time. And all of our committee's work will be thrown out. In the House of Commons, you can move a motion to bring back all of the legislative agenda of the government and potentially private members' bill if they so choose, back to the House of Commons, but all of the work that we have done as a committee, it's lost. It's gone. And what I think worries me is the idea of doing a pre-study on Bill C-73 is, in my view, it's frankly absurd. And in my view, and I think reasonably by anybody that's an observer of this committee or politics broadly, it appears to be an effort to put the many other ongoing and important pieces of work this committee has been undertaking for the past many, many months, to push it back, to put it on the back burner and hope that maybe it never has to be dealt with. Now, Mr. Chair, I'd like to quickly outline what some of that work is that is outstanding at this committee. We had a meeting that we debated a lot about after of how we deal with it, whether it's reports or a letter from the five oil and gas CEOs. Whether you liked their appearance or not, they came, and we should, in some way, at the request of the committee as previously done, highlight what that appearance meant, what they said, and report that back to the House, which I believe was the motion previously passed. We also had, towards the end of the summer, we all flew back from our respective ridings a little bit early for one or two meetings, I believe it was, and carried on to the start of our session here into September, following the federal government's edict of just egregious government overreach that would put mills an entire community is out of business when you've prevented logging from happening
We're
in vast
departing a
swaths
little
of
bit
Quebec.
from, we're departing a little bit from Jasper and.
No, I understand that.
Yeah,
But,
we
but
have to-
I'm just recapping all of what this committee would be losing if we do not allow the work we have undertaken to continue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And of course, Mr. Chair, was it 20, 24 meetings? How many meetings did we do on the freshwater study?
About 19, 18.
19?
I think, yeah.
Do we have one left?
No, we're done.
We're done? Okay. And I know, Mr. Chair, you have advocated for that particular topic of study for a long time, far longer than I've been a member of Parliament. And I appreciate that. I really enjoyed that study because it's very important to me. I joke in many meetings with my municipalities and stakeholders that I'm a water MP. I'm from Manitoba. We're at the basin. I'm a water MP. So I appreciated that particular study. And I fear that 19 meetings and the work behind it from our analysts would be lost if we delay altogether that study amongst many others in lieu of something else. We also have, of course, the net zero study, which includes billions of dollars, $8 billion, I believe it is. It's probably going to dwarf the current investigation that's been done by another committee that's currently before Parliament, the House of Commons, I should say, as it relates to the Sustainable Development Technology Corporation investigation, which is massive amounts of money. We have the ongoing climate finance study from my Bloc Québécois colleague that I think has 2 hours perhaps remaining on it. And from my NDP colleague more recently, and I'm not sure of the exact status of it, but it sounded to me as though Transport Canada may not be taking the issue with the seriousness that and I don't want to put words in the mouth of my NDP colleague, that it may deserve in terms of the Fort Chippewa port dock contamination and Transportation Canada ignoring the requirement to share it with them. And apparently the Transport Committee potentially ignoring the requirement that they...
Madame Chatel.
Je trouve pas que c'est
I do not think that this is very relevant to the amendment as written.
Mr. Leslie, to maybe drift back to the subject of the amendment.
Perfect, Mr. Chair. I would happily to. And my statement is simple as it relates to that. I cannot support the original amendment without adding the sub-amendment that I have proposed. As what it does is it simply hastens the pace of the Liberal efforts to sweep all of this under the rug, to push all of this work back, the work that I just outlined, that pretty much a study from every party, perhaps except the governing party, that wants to take advantage of the opposition and push the work that we have already done back. And this, of course, I didn't even mention, includes, as it relates to Jasper.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Vancouver.
Could I see the clock? How many minutes into the meeting are we now?
We're 30 minutes into the meeting.
Just on this one speech, 30
Yes,
minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, is that a quarter of the meeting then? We have, and how long do we have resources today?
Well, till 5:30, no, 6:30. 6:30.
So for clarity, the speech has taken just a little bit more than a quarter of the meeting so far?
Yes.
And it's on whether or not we're moving fast enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, sort of, I guess, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would rather take 30 minutes to explain why we should do things more promptly than take days and weeks and months and do nothing. I am happy to take a half hour at a time to do better than the current trajectory of this Liberal government. I will take no issues with 30 minutes. In fact, I might go an hour. It might even be worth it. But the reality is I cannot support the amendment as proposed, as I mentioned, without including this sub-amendment, because I think we need to finish perhaps first and foremost, but I did outline many issues that are very important to Canadians of all stripes, of all regions. But the devastation that Jasper saw is, in my view, personally at least, the top priority, and that's why I have moved this sub-amendment. Now, collectively, I think the evidence is overwhelming by the Liberal government trying to move a pre-study on Bill C-73 is a direct effort to change the channel from their failures in Jasper, from their failures for Quebec workers, and broadly speaking, just taxpayers. Now, Bill C-73 was tabled in June. And it has had a grand total of 0 seconds of debate in the House of Commons. And I'll come back on why that is very important. But just as importantly, I have never once seen, and perhaps my colleagues can correct me, on one of those schedules of what is going to be coming up for debate in the House of Commons, Bill C-73. When we asked, and for those that don't know, it's something called a Thursday question, where members of the official opposition ask the governing party, what is the agenda for the week ahead? The Thursday question response, as far as I could tell and have experienced, has never once included Bill C-73. So I don't believe that this is actually a priority for the government. It might be a political priority, but it's not been proven to be in any way, shape, or form a legislative priority where the government is using its House of Commons time to actually move this forward. But let me tell you why this matters, Mr. Chair. For case law, as it relates to ministerial statements, is vital. In our democratic system, there is a principle that Parliament holds the authority to both scrutinize and debate legislation in the House of Commons prior to it moving to the committee stage. And this includes what I think is a critical moment, or often 20 minutes of a moment, where the minister presents the bill, explains the contents of it, the purpose of it, the objectives of it in the maiden speech for that legislation in the House of Commons. Now, in my view, we must respect the procedural order of Parliament, because this ensures that members of all political parties have the proper context and the full information necessary to engage in meaningful deliberation when it gets to committee, to ask reasonable questions to the expert witnesses that this and every other committee brings before us. Now, I'm not saying this to make an allegation that a pre-study has never been done before, that it's entirely this new idea, but in the context, it is a rather novel strategy. The minister has not spoken to this bill at all. Not 1 second beyond tabling has been dedicated to this legislation. Now, when you look at Legisinfo,
We have a point of order, Madam
Oui,
Chateau. Oui, Madam Chateau.
Est-ce que
Point of order, yes. With regard to the amendment, because I think that this is not really relevant to the amendment at all.
Le sujet.
We've left the subject of Jasper to go to a bill which has not yet been discussed. So once again, I would ask you, or I would recall that you should stay on topic, please.
well,
est-ce que l'amendement même est
Is the amendment relevant to the motion? Because I don't really think it's very relevant. Well, I think so, because we did adopt the motion from Ms. Colliers with regard to her study, and that study could not begin before Minister Boissonnault appeared, but it's on the same idea. But maybe it's more relevant now that we have. It's not relevant because we now have confirmation of Mr. Boissonnault's testimony. No, I don't really think so. Leaving the study to after the appearance of the minister, I think that I think the amendment is in order, but I would like Mr. Leslie to that he not stray too much from the actual topic of the sub-amendment.
certainly, and I appreciate that, Mr. Chair, but I will offer a slightly revised version of that same reality. The sub-amendment that I moved forward states that, but none shall commence until the committee has heard from Minister Boissonnault in relation to the study of the factors leading to the recent fires in Jasper National Park. But again, context is important. The motion that I am trying to say, but none shall commence, is about Bill C-73. So I think it is entirely within the round of our residents. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. So once again, in my view, this is it's novel, it's weird, it's odd that we are undertaking a study without any context. We're lawmakers.
So just, I believe, though, I know that the Finance Committee does pre-studies all the time. So
Yep.
I don't think it's that odd, but go ahead.
And again, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that. It actually happens, I think, more frequently in the Senate after it's been through the House of Commons. Now, pre-studies on an issue are one thing, pre-budget consultations, for example. I'm not looking to say that this is entirely new, but the idea of a specific piece of legislation amending a current act without any specific direction. I will get to why I think this is very important. You, Mr. Chair, as a lawyer, I think will actually appreciate this. And as I was saying, when you go to Legisinfo, which is on the parliamentary website, where you look at the actual text of the legislation, and we are lawmakers. Our job is to read and understand what the text of the words on the page of the law are. When you go to Legisinfo, there's a big tab right beside it. It says major speeches. The first of the major speeches is the minister's maiden speech. And there is good reason for it. Parliament has recognized that the role of that speech provides incredibly necessary context. And just as importantly, from a legal perspective, in any future legal proceedings, that is what a judge will look at. What was the intent by the Minister of the Crown, the government, in moving forward with that legislation? That it doesn't matter what me, Brandon across the way, says. It doesn't matter what I say. It matters what the intention of the bill was. And we, none of us, no Canadian, no parliamentarian has seen what that intention is. So we can read it in a silo. But that doesn't change our lack of understanding of what the government is trying to do with this legislation. And in my view, the normal process is first reading, tabling, second reading, maiden speech, debate, come to us. And the proposal to pre-study this in such a unique and novel way contradicts that process. And I want to underscore my position using relevant case law.
Point of order, please. Ms. Chattel, yes, I'm going to show that I'm listening to my colleague, but really I feel that he's very far from the topic, and I would like, perhaps he might need some, I am on the speaker's list. Mr. Leslie? Could we come back to the topic?
I am willing to, but I will say, I think I'm on topic. And I think as a legal mind yourself, I would be hard-pressed to have you disagree with the importance of that maiden speech. I think any legal mind, anybody that's in this world has experienced and seen judicial decisions that cite that initial statement from the minister. Also debates in Parliament more broadly. But again, I'll go back to why Legisinfo has a specific section on its website beside the link to the text of the bill that says major speeches. They're making it very easy for future jurists to go ahead.
Point of order, yes. You have established that the that Bill C-37 is not relevant to the amendment and to the previous amendment, and I think that Mr. Leslie must limit himself to speaking to his sub-amendment and not go into strange legal theories or principles. So, yes, no, I would like Mr. Leslie to come back to the subject, please. You were speaking about Jasper earlier, and I would ask you to stay closer to the subject of the sub-amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will save these, I think, important arguments that as parliamentarians we have an obligation to consider whether or not we are going to move forward with a pre-study. I will save that for the main thrust of the amendment. I will appreciate that perhaps I have veered a little bit away from the sub-amendment, and I will reserve some of these pieces for later. But perhaps I will wrap up in saying this matters. This sub-amendment matters to people, and I look forward to hearing from my colleague from Yellowhead, because I believe firmly that I know he has talked to many people on the ground that are frustrated. I won't repeat the many reasons why they are, but we all know why they are frustrated. I will refrain from going into too much detail about why, from a parliamentary history perspective and a normal, typical legislative perspective, that we should not entertain the idea of Bill C-73, other than to say, most importantly, as it relates to the sub-amendment, we have a duty to Canadians to not just hide the work we've done for months and months and months, whether it be bad for the government or good for the government. That shouldn't really matter. But I don't appreciate when they want to hide things. And as it relates to the Jasper wildfires, this is something that's devastated not only that community, anybody that's visited there, anybody that has had the opportunity to experience that beautiful national park and the hospitality of the people that live, work, and play within it. And I would hope that my colleagues from all parties agree that it is entirely reasonable to pass my proposed sub-amendment that would ensure Minister Boissonnault doesn't delay this forever, that he comes here, provides an update to our committee so we can wrap it up, and we can provide a fulsome study to report back to the House. I will pause there, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Mazier.
28 days ago, the Prime Minister appointed Randy Boissonnault as the Minister responsible for Jasper's recovery. 28 days ago, Randy Boissonnault should have been here testifying at the Jasper wildfire investigation. If Minister Boissonnault is in charge of rebuilding Jasper, why is he not prioritizing this committee and the people of Jasper? I think it's a disgrace to the people of Jasper that the Minister Boissonnault is hiding from this committee. There are many reasons why the Minister Boissonnault may not want to appear at this committee, and I'm going to list a few. Over the course of the Jasper wildfire investigations, Canadians have been exposed to some damning testimony and evidence that suggests this government was grossly negligent in protecting Jasper. On September 26th, Minister Guilbeault testified at Jasper wildfire investigation. He claimed that Jasper's wildfire preparedness was a success. But he also told this committee that he was briefed on the serious likelihood of a catastrophic fire in Jasper. Instead of taking responsibilities for his department's actions and lack of actions, he avoided answering the questions Canadians were asking. In response to his appearance, the National Post wrote an article with the following headline, and I quote, "The Environment Minister repeatedly evaded questions about the federal government's response to multiple warnings of the potential for a catastrophic forest fire in Jasper." End quote. How true. The Jasper wildfire investigation also revealed that senior parks officials were discussing cancelling prescribed burns in Western Canada months before Jasper burned. In an email exchange obtained through an access of information request, a senior Parks Canada official asked, and I quote, "At what point do we make the organizational decision to cancel prescribed burns in Western Canada?" And quote, political perception may become more important than actual prescription windows," end quote. This email exchange was black and white. It was crystal clear what was being discussed. But instead of taking responsibility, this government claimed that everyone but them was misinterpreting this email. They said this was a discussion about mechanical removal, but nowhere in the email was this mentioned. In fact, it was another Parks Canada official who verified our concerns through another email exchange that was obtained. Another senior official responded to that email and stated, and I quote, "I hope we don't get into a blanket shutdown." Quote, "It is critical to continue those kinds of burns. It is how they maintain the community fuel break, and when they fall behind, it is very difficult to catch up." End quote. It wasn't just Conservatives raising concerns with this email. It was Parks Canada very own officials too. Was Minister Boissonnault aware of these discussions? On October 2nd, the Minister of Emergency Preparedness admitted at the Jasper wildfire investigation that he was unaware the Environment Minister's officials were discussing the cancellation of prescribed burns. He later refused to admit that Parks Canada should have removed more dead trees to protect Jasper. During that meeting, Minister Guilbeault's senior vice president at Parks revealed that he does not take any, I can't believe I'm reading this again. Parks Canada revealed that he does not take minutes at their operations meetings when asked to hand over evidence to the Jasper wildfire investigation. I can't believe that. You don't take any minutes. No wonder you can't prove anything. How convenient. It's actually quite frankly absurd, too. And when asked how many dead trees remaining standing in Jasper, Parks Canada could not answer this basic question. It was for these reasons that National Post published an article the following day. The article stated, and I quote, "Stephen Guilbeault doesn't want your Jasper fire questions. He's saving the planet, don't you know?" Quote, "Guilbeault self-congratulated his record on fighting climate change in general and attacked Conservatives for not doing so. More jabs, no insight into how the fire mitigation measures were or were not taken as the dry timber piled up." End quote. On October 7th, the Jasper wildfire investigation revealed that Minister Guilbeault's department turned away multiple fire trucks and firefighters who arrived on the scene to help. And later that day, the Jasper wildfire investigation revealed that Minister Guilbeault's department handcuffed Alberta from making firefighting decisions as over 30,000 hectares burned. Was Minister Boissonnault aware of these decisions? A headline in the National Post stated, and I quote, "Alberta's Deputy Premier slams Unified Command snub by feds during Jasper wildfire." End quote. By this time, the Jasper wildfire investigation was proving that the Liberal government was not only incompetent in protecting Jasper, but they were negligent. Another newspaper headline read, and I quote, "Federal negligence at the root of Jasper's wildfire devastation." Wow, end quote. And yet another article stated, and I quote, "Federal Environment and Climate Change Minister Stephen Guilbeault claimed that Ottawa could not have done better either before or during the fire. At any suggestion that Ottawa was lacking, he trotted out climate change as the true culprit. It was clear more than once that a big, ugly fire in Alberta is a great boost for his climate agenda."
Monsieur le Président, juste à vérifier.
Focusing on climate,
Chair, excuse me. I'd like to clarify the order of speakers. You're next, and then Collins, Vancouver, then Soroka, Deltel. Thank you very much.
Point of clarification as well. Just if I think the Conservatives have been filibustering for almost.
Could you
an hour
speak a bit
now.
louder? Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Sorry. Let me just put up. That's my fault. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, it seems like the Conservatives have been filibustering for almost an hour now, and I'm just curious if they filibuster until the very end of this meeting, so for a full 2 hours. I'm just curious, does this debate start up in the next meeting, or would we have our regular scheduled meeting next week, or sorry, the following week when the House resumes.
That could happen.
Just wondering about the procedure. Does this debate continue at the next meeting if they filibuster until the very end, or I'm wanting to know. Last meeting you adjourned really abruptly, and that is why I think we're in this situation again, where we're debating this for an entire session and wasting resources. I am feeling frustrated with both the Liberals and the Conservatives right now, so I'm just curious. I would love to know and get some clarity around if this filibuster continues to the very end, will we be debating this again in the next Environment Committee meeting?
Quite possibly.
Fun. Okay, thanks.
I mean, if this is the desire of the committee to and it's, to be debating this for a long time, then that may very well be what happens. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Mason.
And sorry, Mr. Chair, just another point of clarification. I would vote in favor of this sub-amendment. The Conservatives, them filibustering their own sub-amendment, really means that we can't vote. They can't vote in favor of it. I can't vote in favor of it. We all can't vote in favor of it. Is that correct?
That's a very good observation. That's a very good observation.
Thank you, Chair. And yet another article stated, and I quote, Federal Environment and Climate Change Minister Stephen Guilbeault claimed that Ottawa could not have done better
Point of
either
order, Mr.
before,
Chair.
during,
Yes, Mr. Vancouver.
Thank you. Is reading from the newspaper relevant to C73, or?
Well, we're
to
talking about the sub-amendment, which is about Jasper. So, once you get into that.
just so you know,
But for
it's
clarity-
right in front of you, the sub-amendment.
Yeah,
You can
just-
just read
just
it.
The
for clarity,
sub-amendment
though,
is
is
about
reading-
Jasper, so, a discussion of Jasper is in order, even if it is repetitive at some time. That's
Okay,
all.
but is it relevant to C73 or to Jasper, this article that he's reading from, just to fill time?
Well, I think that the point of the amendment, if
Yeah.
I may,
I'm giving you a break, you should
the
appreciate
point
it.
of the
Catch your
amendment
breath.
is to try and force Mr. Boissonnault to come earlier than December 6th. That's
Right.
really
Right.
it's intended to be leverage. So, it's really not about, it's not, I guess you could say it's not really about, the whole motion is about C73, but the amendment, the sub-amendment that we're discussing is really, I think, intended to put pressure on Mr. Boissonnault to come earlier. And so that is basically, I think, the tack that is being taken. But as long as we talk about Jasper, I guess it's relevant because the sub-amendment speaks of Jasper and Minister Boissonnault.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, for that clarification. Another newspaper headline read, and I quote, Federal negligent at the root of Jasper's wildfire devastation, end quote. And yet another article stated, and I quote, Federal Environment and Climate Change Minister Stephen Guilbeault claimed that Ottawa could not have done better either before or during the fire. At any suggestion that Ottawa was lacking, he trotted out climate change as the true culprit. It was clear that more than once that a big ugly fire in Alberta is a great boost for his climate change agenda. Focusing on climate also turned minds away from serious questions about Ottawa's performance as a power in charge of both prevention and firefighting, end quote. On October 9th, the Jasper wildfire investigation heard damning testimony from a forestry expert who warned the Liberals in 2017 that the Jasper wildfire was not a matter of if, but when. Ken Hodges stated, and I quote, nothing was done to address the landscape of beetle-killed timber to prevent the mega fire, end quote. He also stated in a written submission to this committee, and I quote, someone needs to take responsibility and be held to account for this calamity of errors and not blame other parties or climate change for the fire. Government and Parks Canada screwed up big time, and they ignored the issues, end quote. God bless Ken Hodges. And he then asked, Was the inaction by Parks Canada, knowing the issue and concerns that created this catastrophe, a criminal act? End quote. Even the CBC was sounding the alarm over this damning evidence. In an article published on October 10th, a CBC headline read, and I quote, "Wildfire could have been avoided with proper planning, witnesses and experts say," end quote. Shortly after this, the Edmonton Journal published an article with the following headline, and I quote, "Trudeau's wildfire strategy, permit old, drying, decaying forests, and blame climate change," end quote. Chair, the only ones playing politics with this matter are the Liberals who want this investigation to end. That's why they shut down a meeting to prevent a vote on our motion to summon the former Environment Minister, Catherine McKenna. Minister McKenna was warned in 2017 about this deadfall in Jasper. She should be appearing at this committee with Minister Bessonneau. On October 23rd, the Alberta Forest Products Association revealed they also warned that a fire in Jasper was inevitable if the Liberals did not act. Minister Bessonneau was at the cabinet table. He needs to answer for the government's inaction. At the same time, at the same meeting during the Jasper wildfire investigation, a local Métis leader revealed that the Liberals did not build a proper fire guard around the town of Jasper. She testified, and I quote, "There wasn't an appropriate fire guard put in place," end quote. Are the Liberals going to criticize Indigenous leaders for sounding the alarm on Jasper? What does Minister Bessonneau have to say about this? Canadians were shocked to learn that at least one Parks Canada employee was fired for speaking out against the mismanagement at Jasper National Park, according to the former MP for the region. Another headline from the CBC article read, and I quote, "Parks Canada employee terminated after voicing concern, former MP testifies," end quote. Day after day, new evidence...
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Yes. Was the MP that Mr. Mazur referring to the former MP for the region who admitted to lying in his testimony and walked back his comments, or was it a different one?
I don't know.
I'm just asking for clarification. He said the other MP. He should be more specific for the analysts.
The retired MP, I don't know.
Well, there was one that lied during his testimony and had to walk back his comments.
That's a point of debate. That's a point of debate.
Point of order. Talking about the testimony of a witness as a lie is not correct as a member of parliament, and I would think that we have to be very high profile in this issue instead of being. If they want to attack us, go on, but not the testimony of a witness.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, could you continue?
Another headline from the CBC article read, and I quote, "Parks Canada employee terminated after voicing concern, former MP testifies," end quote. Day after day, new evidence emerges at the Jasper wildfire investigation that shows the Liberals were negligent. Minister Bessonneau should be here. He should be testifying at this committee. This committee should not be conducting any business until he testifies. We just received an email from a local resident in Jasper who wrote to former Environment Minister Catherine McKenna in 2018. She stated in her email, and I will quote, "I never got an answer from Catherine McKenna at the time back in 2018.
Yes, Ms. Collins.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I heard that correctly. Did Mr. Mazur just say that they aren't going to let any committee business happen until Randy Bessonneau testifies?
Well, not directly. Not directly. He expressed the view that the committee should not conduct any business, any business, until Minister Bessonneau appears. Yeah, that's his opinion. Yeah.
This committee should not be, hang on, okay. So we just received an email from a local resident in Jasper who wrote to former Environment Minister Catherine McKenna in 2018. She stated in her email, and I quote, "I never got an answer from Catherine McKenna at the time back in 2018 while she was Minister in charge of Environment and Climate Change from 2015 to 2019. I guess my concerns were not important enough for her department, end quote. She then stated, and I quote, if you are willing to have me testifying based on what I know and wrote back in 2018, let me know. I'm terrified, but I'm ready if you have to. My town, my house, my whole life could disappear if we do not do anything to protect the town from the west, and this is a fact, end quote. It's people like this that understand the importance of Jasper wildfire investigation, the people actually living there. This isn't about politics. It's about accountability and their future. Minister Boissonnault must be held accountable. In 2018, local Jasper resident Marie-France Maron raised concerns with the mismanagement of Jasper National Park in a letter to the editor. I'm going to read her letter into the record so Minister Boissonnault better understands the mismanagement in Jasper before he testifies. She stated, and I quote, Dear Editor, Mr. Fair remained silent, and for more than 3 weeks he ignored not only articles written in the Fitzhugh about Jasper's fire threat, but also residents' letters personally addressed to him. How is that? How do I say that? Fitzhugh. There you go. Thank you. That must be in the speaker. It took him, however, just 82 minutes to reply to a possible protest to be held regarding the serious issue. I'm very pleased, as I also noticed that the Information and Fire Updates webpage was updated twice, and the first time was on June 1st, exactly 2 days after I sent an email to him. Did you know we now have a link to the current fire danger rating, which was updated on June 4th? I wonder if that was only a coincidence. The Mountain Pine Beetle Jasper National Park Management Plan 2016 recommended Mr. Rashid, Resource Conservation Manager, and approved by Mr. Fair, mentioned by myself on May 17, states that because the mountain pine beetle pose a threat to the national parks and also Jasper town site, intervention is necessary. Active management is recommended when the structure and function of an ecosystem has been altered and manipulation is only possible alternative available to restore ecological integrity. Intervention is triggered when there may be adverse effects on neighboring lands, major park facilities, public health or safety will be threatened, or the objectives of the park management plan cannot be achieved. I now therefore know for a fact that Mr. Rashid and Mr. Fair proposed and approved on July 22nd, 2016, to apply Parks Canada Guiding Principles on Operation Policies, Section 3.2.3. The plan states as well, ensure that threats posed by mountain pine beetle to Jasper town site and visitors coming to Jasper are mitigated to the extent possible. The total failure of Parks Canada to put strategies in place to reduce the wildfire risk on Pyramid Bench as planned for fall 2017 is simply unacceptable. We most definitely need more than one plan that is ready to go at any given time when you consider the speed with which this disease is spreading around our town and throughout the park. These two gentlemen also agreed on the importance of educating, informing, and ensuring that the public understands the state of the mountain pine beetle, as well as the actions that should be taken by Parks Canada to neutralize the situation. Parks Canada will continue to contribute to visitor, Jasper residents,
Point of
and
order, Mr.
adjacent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just checking in on the time. How many minutes have we been in this meeting for?
70.
70. And the Conservatives are urging us to go faster on the study, right? They would like to get to it as quickly as possible?
Yeah, it's a debate. It's no, I don't know if that's exactly what they're saying, but anyway.
Just wanted to make sure that Mr. Mazur could catch his voice a little bit. Catch
Okay,
up.
Mr. Mazur,
Hope you got your finger on where you're reading there.
Continue.
I think basically it's kind of, I find it very amusing, Chair, that the Liberals really want to do to shut down this debate. They don't want to hear from Jasperites. They don't want to hear the facts. Parks Canada will continue to contribute to visitor Jasper residents and adjacent community understanding and support the Jasper National Park Mountain Pine Beetle Management Plan. Well, judging by the fact that only by chance did I find the plan by using the right keywords when Googling it, it becomes quite legitimate to wonder whether these two gentlemen have done their job properly over the last 2 years. I am still, as others residents, waiting for Mr. Fair to coordinate an evening session. Is this not an important part of the plan that he approved to keep, among others, residents informed, to keep people aware? Even though we noticed this week some effort to update Parks Canada Fire Information and Updates webpage, we are still far away from what we should have been done. Do visitors know what to do in a possible evacuation? Are visitors aware of behaviors to avoid, such as being responsible with their cigarette butts? As suggested by Mr. Ken Hodges, professional forester, in his letter on May 30th, why not have signage throughout the park regarding fire conditions, the fire ban, and behavior to adopt in relation to the risk? Furthermore, despite the fact that Mr. Hodges and Mr. Begin, two BC researchers, have never provided any reports, only letters and emails to parks, it is hard to understand why Mr. Fair does not consider their expertise and recommendations, as they wrote letters more than once to express their concerns about the fire threat to the town of Jasper. Between the two of them, they have over 80 years of forest management experience in BC, and they think Jasper is due for a catastrophic forest fire. According to Mr. Hodges, in his letter of May 30th, seasoned BC forest firefighters have never seen the explosive fire behavior or ecological damage when fighting recent fires in forests exhibiting similar conditions to those in Jasper. Still, according to him, Parks' actions should include more efforts in protecting the community and infrastructure by setting priorities for logging strategies throughout the park this summer. As also stated by Mr. Alan Carroll, Jasper National Park decided to consider the pine beetle a native disturbance agent, and because of that, was not intending to do much about it. This article also states that foresters, along with Parks Edge, have been seen a tenfold increase in beetle infestation in just months, and some scientists wonder if Parks Canada could have done more to control the invasion a few years ago. I suppose we can all answer that question. Not only does Parks Canada have the authority to go on with logging because of their guiding principles and operation policies, Mr. Fair has the responsibility to protect the town of Jasper, period. Updating their website is one thing. They have to start logging right now. Mr. Alan Fair, Mr. Salman Rashid, we are giving you the chance to do better by not holding a protest next Saturday, since you seem to be taking action as we speak. It is the time you both to shine, to prove and demonstrate that you have and will have a situation in hand. Are you the two who will be known for having taken the right measures in order to keep our town safe, or are you going to be remembered as those who failed and let our town burn? End quote. That was a letter from a local Jasper resident. Are the Liberals going to call Marie-France names? Are the Liberals going to falsely claim that she was lying? The Liberals continue to say Conservatives are spreading misinformation by giving voices to experts. These are not our words, though. These are the words of the witnesses who have been brave enough to testify at Jasper wildfire investigation and to speak truth to power. Every time the Liberals falsely claim that we are politicizing...
To Vancouver.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mr. Mazur. Just a couple of minutes ago, my honourable colleague, Mr. Deltel, suggested that we not call former members of Parliament or witnesses liars. I tend to agree, even if they admit to lying or admit to walking back their comments in a committee meeting. But then Mr. Mazur just did the exact same thing. So Do the Conservatives want to accuse former members of Parliament of lying, or do they not? Because it's really up to them.
Yeah, we should stay away from that kind of inference, yeah, or explicit.
I was inferring that, are the Liberals going to call the witness a liar? That's all. I was just asking a question.
Well, when they admit to lying, it's one thing. When they say you're right, okay, I
Well,
was
you know what,
wrong.
I-
you know,
I-
No, I was
shouldn't have
questioning
said
whether you're going
that.
to call more people more
let's-
liars.
let's-
That's all I was asking. Whoa.
Just try to keep the language as moderate as possible. Go ahead, Mr. Mazer.
Thank you, Chair. Every time, and I just proved it again, every time the Liberals falsely claim that we are politicizing this issue or spreading misinformation, they are insulting the brave witnesses
Madame
who
Chatel,
testify
excuse
on
me,
the
Mr.
mismanagement of
Mazer,
Jasper.
excuse me, Mr. Mazer.
I'm sorry, point of order.
J'ai de la difficulté à entendre, à trouver pourquoi cette discussion-là est pertinente à l'amendement auquel on fait référence ici. Donc, je rappellerai mon collègue de parler.
Il n'y a pas de traduction un instant.
I don't understand why this is relevant. Can you go ahead? I'm sorry again. Yes, thank you, Chair. I would just don't understand how this discussion is relevant to the proposed amendments. So I would ask my colleague to stay on topic. Yes, have you understood, Mr. Misler? So please try to remain on topic and continue, please.
Well, Chair, the Jasper wildfire investigation has proven one thing for certain. The Liberals are fake environmentalists. No wonder the Liberals want to shut down this investigation with another motion. They have finally been exposed for their failures, and Canadians are paying attention.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Is that Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, yes.
Mr. Mazer and Conservative, they are from last almost 2 hours filibustering and proving to be fake environmentalists.
Understand, but it's not a.
But they're blaming Liberal. They should stop playing these games and not waste this committee's time.
Point of order, unfortunately. Go ahead, Mr. Mazer.
Like I finished up, they have finally been exposed. These Liberals have finally been exposed, and Canadians are watching. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Mazer. Madame Chatel.
Merci.
Ms. Chatel, yes, thank you very much, Chair. I would suggest that we adjourn discussion on this motion. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn debate. Mr. Ali,
Yes.
Madame Chatel,
Oui.
Mr. Longfield,
Yes.
Taylor Roy? Thumbs up, okay.
Yes.
No?
Mr. Leslie,
No.
Mr. Mazer, Mr. Roca,
No.
Oui.
Ms. Collins.
And I'm sorry, my internet was unstable. Can you repeat what we're voting on?
It's a motion to adjourn debate.
And sorry, just point of clarification, Chair, if we adjourn debate, does that end the meeting?
No, it ends the debate
It just ends the debate.
on this motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just because all of you were frozen while you were debating, can I get a tally of the votes so far?
Yes, we have, can I read this to Ms. Okay, yes, okay. So right now, it's without your vote, it's 6-4 to adjourn debate.
Okay, so it really doesn't matter which way I vote.
Well, it's important to vote.
I will vote. I will vote. I'm going to vote no.
Okay, but pardon? you're already, the whole debate is gone now.
Well, then I'd like to speak.
Okay, so we have Mr. Van Couverden. Anyone else want to?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Leslie had an hour, and I was on the speakers list as well.
No, you were on the speakers list for the motion, but the motion's gone now. The motion's gone. Like, it's not just this, it's not just that we've adjourned debate on the sub-amendment, the whole thing's gone. So we're starting
So
fresh.
Mr. Leslie would like a second hour today?
Well, he was
entitled.
quick.
I would happily be quick with this.
Yeah, okay, but then it's Mr. Van Couverden. Sorry, let me, just so that I can keep it straight, does anyone else want to speak on? Ms. Collins, you have your hand up? Okay. Okay, Mr. Leslie.
Given that debate has been, pardon me. Given that debate has been adjourned at the request of the governing party, I would move that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, we'll have to have a vote on that.
Mr. Ali,
No?
Madame Chatel,
Non.
Mr. Longfield,
No.
Ms. Taylor-Roy. Mr. Van Couverden,
No.
Monsieur Datel,
Oui.
Mr. Leslie,
Yes.
Mr. Mazer,
Yes.
Mr. Soroka,
Yes.
Madame Posey,
Non.
Ms. Collins.
No.
Okay, so we're not adjourning. And you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's back on track here. I'd like to make a notice of a new motion that this committee undertake a pre-study on Bill C-73, an act respecting
Sorry,
transfer.
you don't have to put it on notice, you can propose it. You can,
Oh, because we're in committee business?
yeah.
Okay, great. I'll do that then. I'll start again.
Mr. Chair, just so you know that my hand is up to be on the speaking list.
Okay, on Mr., your hand is up, but now Mr. Van Couverden is,
But now on Mr. Van Couverden's motion.
okay. Yes, okay, good, okay.
What does that actually motion look like now?
Well,
Yeah,
he's
read.
going to read it. He's going to
Okay.
read it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Leslie Chatel, okay, go ahead, Mr. Van Couverden, yeah.
Okay, that this committee undertake a pre-study on Bill C-73, an act respecting transparency and accountability in relation to certain commitments that Canada has made under the Convention on Biological Diversity. To this end, the committee shall hold a minimum of 5 meetings. 1, that this study begin on November 27th. 2, that we invite the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change and Environment and Climate Change officials on November 27th, 2024. And 3, that this committee complete its sustainable finance study on November 25th with a 2-hour meeting.
Point of order, Mr. Chair?
Just a second here.
Unless you weren't done, sorry, Adam.
Point of order, yes?
I would be curious from perhaps the clerk or your experience, Mr. Chair, on the substantial difference of the motion that was just put before us compared to the motion that was just adjourned. Is there a substantial enough difference? Yes, there is a different number of clauses. There's an A, B, and C, but to me, the general thrust of that is almost identical with a small prescription. So I would look to previous decisions from chairs, or perhaps the clerk could advise, if there is substantial difference from the motion that was just adjourned seconds ago to the one that was just proposed.
Well, the one that was just proposed also speaks about of the sustainable finance study. I consider it substantial. Yeah.
Monsieur le Président, on aimerait avoir évidemment
Chair, I would like to have the motion in both official languages, please. And I would suggest we take a brief break.
Electronically in both languages?
Point of order, if that's okay.
Go ahead with your point of order, but then we're going to pause and you can distribute that to the clerk and she can distribute it to everybody.
Sure, just a point of order that because we didn't vote on the previous motion, I don't think that Mr. Leslie's concerns apply. We adjourned debate on it, and it wasn't voted down or up.
Yeah, that sounds like it makes sense.
Here, just
But anyway, I
of
consider
order.
it substantially different, and we're going to pause for a few
Point of
minutes.
order, point of order, point of order.
Yes, Ms.
Before you
Collins? Ms. Collins?
gavel. I just wanted to tell the Chair, to tell you that I have an amendment that I'm sending to the clerk as well, and it'll be in both official languages. So perhaps we could send it out. I'll be moving it once Mr. Van Couverden is done speaking.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Just a pause.
But I'm still on, I'm not complete. There was a point of order and then I.
Mr. Van Couverden, could you speak to your motion?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Bill C-73 is an act respecting transparency and accountability in relation to certain commitments that Canada has made under the Convention on Biological Diversity. Canada is...
Yes, Mr. Leslie.
I'm confused because I thought transparency would include the minister making his maiden speech in Parliament first.
Well, that's not a point of order.
Okay, sorry, my
It's a thought.
apologies. I have many.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. And thanks
Just as
to,
clarification?
I think the Conservative members would like to ask a question.
Clarification?
So just to be clear, the minister hasn't even introduced this in the House yet?
Yes, it's completed first reading in June.
It hasn't moved forward.
He hasn't spoken on it though yet, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, that's pretty unprecedented, right? Okay.
Surprising to hear that the Conservative members haven't even looked into where this bill is on the order paper, but the members can check on parle.ca with respect to where exactly the Nature Accountability Act
One person at a time, please. Mr. Van Couverden, you have the floor.
Thanks. I don't think I'll take any lessons on reading from Mr. Mazur.
Okay, let's just move ahead with the motion and what it's for and.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Speaker. The bill is C-73. It's an act respecting transparency and accountability with regards to the Convention on Biological Diversity. We've been approached by various stakeholders in this building as we're coming in and coming out of these meetings, urging us to look into this and do a pre-study. This is an important bill. There are, first of all, Canada is one of the most biologically diverse countries in the world, not just because of our size, but also because of the diversity of our landscapes. And this is a uniquely Canadian issue that I am looking forward to studying. Canada is facing a triple threat of pollution, biodiversity loss, and climate change. and all three have an impact on biological diversity. And I'm looking forward to looking into Bill C-73. And I'll also say that if we pass this in the last couple of meetings, when I've made notice of this motion, the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change would have already been here. He would have visited today. And that's what the Conservatives seem to suggest they would like. They would like more ministers.
Is it a point of order?
Probably not.
Okay, then we'll let Mr. Van Koeveren continue.
The Conservatives have repeatedly suggested that they would like to have the ministers come to this committee. As I speak today, following an hour and a half of filibuster from the Conservatives, the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change could have been here. However, they wanted to listen to each other and themselves speak instead. So it was cute while it lasted, and they're still talking. But
If we could just have one person speaking at a time, it'll go much better.
yeah, very good. So I'm looking forward to doing this pre-study. I'm also looking forward to having Minister Boissonnault here. He is indeed traveling to Jasper in the coming weeks, and I'm certain that he'll have insight to gain. With respect to Jasper and the preceding hour of conversation on it, I would just read once again an excerpt from the Jasper Local, and I quote, "Fanning the flames of these politically
Mr.
driven
Leslie.
comments sows division, mistrust, and hard feelings amongst Canadians in general, but amongst Jasperites in particular. The negative rhetoric is wearing on locals, many of whom were involved in the incident."
Point of order.
And
Yeah.
This isn't really relevant to his actual motion. This is talking about C-73.
But
I
the
have-
motion,
I
the
have seen-
motion is about C-73.
Yeah, but he's talking about Jasper now. I didn't think he wanted to talk about Jasper.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed part of that, what Mr. Van
It's a
Koeveren was
quote
saying.
from a Jasper
Okay,
article,
let's
right?
see, let's let Mr. Van Koeveren continue and see what happens.
yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The point that I'm getting at is that Jasper's mayor
There you go. It's
encouraged us
Jasper.
all
It's
to
not relevant.
tone down the political rhetoric on this, and the Conservatives just spent 90 minutes filibustering on it and pointing fingers. It's shameful, disgusting, and you all ought to be ashamed of yourselves.
I'll point it at you every time, Adam.
Okay, listen, I'm going to suspend the meeting if this continues. I'm going to suspend the meeting, and it may not work to everyone's advantage. Okay, so is that, do you have more to say on your motion? Okay, we'll go to Ms. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank Mr. Van Koeveren, for pushing for a pre-study for Bill C-73, but I am very disappointed that the Liberals have approached it in a way that has resulted in us being here debating for, over an hour. If you can include last meeting for multiple hours, something that we could have passed when we were dealing with committee business just a couple weeks ago. You had already tabled this motion, and Mr. Van Koeveren had already tabled the motion, but then chose not to move it in our committee, in our in-camera committee business, where there is no benefit or incentive for Conservatives to filibuster and try and get clips on whatever they want to talk about. It is also really disheartening to see the Conservatives filibustering a really important bill, and a really important motion on an act respecting transparency and accountability for nature and for biodiversity. I am going to table an amendment to this. I really hold strengthening this piece of legislation dearly, because I think, it's really important that this legislation has been tabled in the House. It is a weak piece of legislation, much like the Climate Accountability Act. The Biodiversity Accountability Act has been watered down. It has huge gaps. It needs to be amended and strengthened, and it's why I support a pre-study of this bill. But it shouldn't be used to displace other important work that our committee is engaged in particular, the study on the contamination that's happening in Fort Chipewyan, and the fact that these
Excuse me,
called on us.
could I interrupt you? It's, as I read this motion, it's not displacing anything. It's just the only date that is prescribed is November 27th, which is before, and I think according to your motion, we couldn't begin the doc study until Minister Boissonnault appears. So he's not appearing till the 4th. The motion doesn't prescribe, other than November 27th, it doesn't prescribe any dates for future meetings. So it's not technically displacing.
So I think as it reads currently, I think it would displace. So my amendment would be that the remaining meetings of this pre-study will not commence until the completion of the contaminated transport dock study. And I noticed that actually in here I didn't actually mean to delete number 3. I don't think. I'm just not sure. Here we go. 1 second.
Seen the amendment. Can I see the amendment? Sorry. Okay, so you're just taking out. You're taking out. Oh, you didn't mean to strike out number 3.
I was hoping to put a number 3 in there.
3 would become 4, basically. Yeah. So 3 would become 4. Okay. Yeah. You're not striking out 3. You're just adding something in between 2.
Exactly. And I think to speak to that amendment, the 3 nations who have called on parliamentarians.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but what I have in front of me shows. Oh, I see. Okay, I see. Okay, you have it there. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. The 3 nations who have called on this committee and parliamentarians to investigate what happened with the contamination, a really clear example of environmental racism where a community has been, where the government has hid information and really in many ways acted in the same way that Canada has been acting for years and years, not giving communities the information and knowledge that they need to protect themselves, to keep their health, to keep their children safe. And so I don't want to take too much time with this, but I am proposing this amendment in hopes that it might also get the Conservatives on board, because this would happen likely after the completion of the Jasper study. We have a number of things on the docket. It means that we would start a pre-study of Bill C-73 before we start some of the reports and the kind of more granular work that is to come, hopefully in the new year. But it would mean that we would ensure that we honor the requests of these nations, that there is accountability for the government when it comes to environmental racism and the contamination that is happening in Fort Chipewyan. And it would also mean that we could meaningfully engage in fixing the weak and inadequate piece of legislation that the government has put forward on biodiversity accountability. That we
Point
can
of
do
order,
the
Mr.
hard
Chair.
work of.
So I have a point of order. Yes, go ahead.
Has the member been in touch with the Transport Committee with respect to any of their plans?
I don't know. Ms. Collins, have you been having conversations with the Transport Committee?
So my understanding is that they have not agreed to conduct a study on the contamination in Fort Chipewyan, and we've heard from that they have requested documents, which I think is important, and it makes sense for the Transport Committee to request documents around something to do with the transportation dock. But I think it's also really in line with our mandate, especially since we recently passed a bill on environmental racism, that we study what happened when it comes to the information shared or not shared with the nations impacted by this, that we look at the health and environmental impacts.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, I have another point of order, Mr. Van Koeverden.
I apologize. I couldn't agree more with Ms. Collins. I should have asked, has the committee received word? Because that's what is the underpinning of this question. If the committee has received word from the other committee on their
I'll tell you what I
plans.
know, and it's not. It's not maybe as clear as one would like, but I know that the Transport Committee has been discussing it. And my sense is that it's looking pretty good that they will do a study, but no motion has been passed. But I'm told that
My understanding is that there hasn't been a motion tabled. Is that?
and tabled either. So
Yeah,
I think they're working
think
it
that-
out. They're working it out, in the corridors of power, as it were. So
maybe you can clarify again, Mr. Chair, that our motion, which we passed in committee business, like as we normally should with these motions.
it was
they
duly
don't
passed. It
become-
was duly passed.
It was duly passed, and it gave
And
a
quite
timeline
clear.
of a week, which has passed.
Yeah, it was quite clear and duly passed. And the Transport Committee has not passed the motion.
Yeah, we are engaging in the study. We've committed to it. And my deep commitment to these three nations who are impacted is to make sure that the Liberals don't avoid accountability, that they don't use any tools in this House to avoid an investigation into what happened in Fort Chipewyan.
Okay, so I understand we have your amendment in front of us in excuse me, in black and white. Mr. Leslie? I assume you're done, Ms. Collins. Mr. Leslie?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would say, broadly speaking, I think we agree with the proposed amendment from our NDP colleague. And it is, to me, very disappointing that the Parliamentary Secretary of Environment has no idea what the Transportation Committee is doing on such an important issue that relates directly to the environment. But I appreciate a bit of an update from you there, Mr. Chair, in terms of what seems to me to be the Transportation Committee fluffing this off. And I think we did pass a motion. And when this committee passed the motion, that's why, in my view anyways, the main reason that we would support this NDP amendment to this new motion on a pre-study for Bill C-73. And as I was saying a little bit earlier regarding the pre-study broadly, I think we should follow the proper order of procedures of how this place has worked. And my hope is that by perhaps outlining, as per the proposed changes from my NDP colleague, that by the time that November 27th rolls around, hopefully sooner, the government will acknowledge the will of Parliament, the will of their Liberal, now non-partisan speaker that has ruled that we have had, as members, our parliamentary privilege breached when we collectively
I don't know how
vote.
relevant that is to this amendment, Mr. Leslie, to be honest with you. I mean,
Well, understandable, but let me get there, Mr. Chair.
yeah.
We as members have privileges in this place, in this committee, in this House. And we decided that we wanted to see documents. And the reason that we have not seen a speech from the minister on Bill C-73, I assume my Liberal government colleagues would complain, is because the dastardly Conservatives and all opposition members are asking for, just like veterans, more than they could give. In this case, legal documents that may show potential criminal activity as outlined by the Auditor General to the tune of nearly $390 million. Now, they may take that position, but my hope is by the time this, as proposed, new amended motion rolls around, that the House may be moving, and we have heard from Minister Guilbeault, the tabling sponsor of the legislation, to better understand the full context. But my concerns still remain very much the same, that due to the obstinance of this Liberal government, we will not have the documents turned over to the law clerk and then therefore on to the RCMP for their consideration as to whether or not
Point of order,
criminal
Mr.
activities may have concerns.
Ms. Collins.
Sorry about the coughing. My understanding is the amendment talks about the contaminated transport dock study, which will come after the Net Zero Accelerator session, the one session of that. This doesn't seem like it is on topic, and I would just implore.
It's not on topic. I agree.
We could vote on this really quickly, and he could filibuster the rest of the main motion for as long as he wants.
Okay, so Mr. Leslie, you still have the floor.
I would, the gist of my comments here, Mr. Chair, is that while I agree with the general intent of my colleague from the NDP's amendment to this motion, I think we can and must prepare ourselves for the high likelihood that the Liberals will continue to hide the documents, therefore the House will not progress, therefore will not have the maiden speech from the Minister. But
Madam
I-
Chatel, as a
Point of order, please. And you went to Mr. Leslie right away, but I was on the list. But we're talking about on the motion, yes, but on the amendment, no, I didn't have you down for the amendment, just for the motion itself. Would you want to be on the list for the amendment? Yes.
okay, Mr. Le-
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with all of that said, as I mentioned, we need to buffer against the high likelihood that that doesn't happen, that the gridlock is not relieved unless the government decides to release those documents. So knowing that possibility, I'd like to further buffer this committee against the intentional delay of so many aspects of the work that we have undertaken. So I would propose a further sub-amendment with the intentional support of the proposed amendment from my colleague from the NDP. And it would involve several pieces, and perhaps if it would be easier for my colleagues,
writing.
why don't we take a quick break and I
Yeah.
can send it
Can
around?
I get
in
on the
writing?
speakers list for the sub-amendment, please?
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, okay.
Sure, I'll get on there.
Even though we don't know what the sub-amendment is, but anyway. Okay, we'll take a pause and we'll look at what the sub-amendment is. We have 6 minutes. Okay, okay, Ms. Collins, did you? No, wait a minute. Where were we? Mr. Leslie has a sub-amendment, which do we have it in writing? Has it been distributed to people on email?
Yes, and I apologize, Mr. Chair. It's slightly more complex, so perhaps in order to not overcomplicate this process, what I would ask is that I will not move that as a sub-amendment, and perhaps if there's agreement amongst members, we can move to a vote on the NDP amendment. But I would like to retain my spot on the speaking list once that vote is complete to move a different amendment so that it's not overly complex for members to consider all together at the same time.
Well, so you're withdrawing your sub-amendment, basically.
Well, I haven't actually moved it yet.
Okay, you haven't moved it. You haven't moved it. So
But
you have the floor.
Yes, so
So
given...
you can call for a vote on the amendment.
Well, is there a speaker's list?
Yes, there is. So if you don't call for a vote on the amendment, we have Mr. Lloyd, Madame Posé, Madame Chatel.
On the amendment?
On the, oh, no, right, you can't, because we've got to get through the speakers list. Yeah, we got a speakers list. So I'll put you on the speakers list on the amendment.
So if I don't move my motion...
Then we go to Mr. Lloyd.
But am I not currently still on?
Sorry, Mr. Lloyd. Sorry, I put your first name, because we're friends and stuff. So go ahead, Mr.
Point of order, just point of clarification.
Yeah.
If Mr. Leslie calls for a vote, can you?
You can't
kind of
vote.
survey?
There's a speaking list. There's a speaking list. Can
you survey the speaking list?
Yeah,
to see if
there's
those people would
Mr.
want to vote on it?
Mr. Longfield, Madame Posé, Madame Chatel, but we have 5 minutes left. We have 5 minutes left in this meeting. So
Maybe they would be open to just voting. Who knows?
well, we can't vote unless Mr. Longfield, Madame Posé, and Madame Chatel decide they don't want to speak, or Madame Chatel, and then somebody calls for a vote. So if people want to withdraw from the speakers list, and there's no one left to speak, then somebody can call for a vote.
I'm happy to remove my name because it was there to ask for a vote.
Okay.
But
Madame-
keep it if nobody
Yeah, got
else
it. Okay.
is not
Okay,
asking
Mr.
for-
Longfield, do you want to speak?
Yeah, I've been listening.
Well, yeah, Mr. Leslie technically still has the floor, but what is it about?
We are on the amendment. I have the floor, but I have not yet moved a sub-amendment.
Yeah,
which,
so
as
now
I-
you have to speak to the amendment.
Okay, well, in the essence of time, I will relinquish the floor with hopes that in the next 5 minutes we could vote on that. But I would also like to add my name to, once that vote is complete, the list of speakers
on the motion.
Immediately following that on the motion.
You're already there for the motion. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so Mr. Longfield?
Intently to 2 hours of discussion. And the discussion that we've been hearing is really looking at delaying getting any progress on doing a pre-study. That's a very important pre-study for us to do. because the Environment Committee should be weighing in on the pre-study on Banff. We have done a little bit of work on it, but I think we've got some unfinished business there. So I was really hoping that we were going to get to that today, but the Conservatives really didn't want to do a pre-study, so spent 2 hours talking about other things. And now at the end of the meeting, we're being asked to jump ahead of a queue that right now the Transport Committee is looking at a transport issue, which is something that they're trying to determine how they could get that study agreed on and put into their schedule. And so for us to butt ahead of the work that the Transport Committee is doing on
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
I don't
Yes,
think
Ms. Collins, yes.
Just point of clarification. Again, we have passed a motion to do this study on the contamination that is impacting the health.
Sir,
and
Mr. Longfield
environment of Port
understands
Chippewa.
that. He understands that. He's just commenting on the fact that the Transport Committee is looking at this too.
And I think I can see Ms. Collins wants to get the political points on this. But I think
Point of
that
order,
it's,
Is this a point of order or really a point of debate?
It is at a point of order.
Okay.
The member should not be assuming motives. My motives are to listen to the 3 nations who are calling on us to do an investigation. And I take great offense to him putting those kinds of motives into. I am not trying to score political points here. And Mr. Chair, I would ask that the member apologize.
discussion, and
Okay.
the public discussion,
Okay.
my reading on it is that we're going around a process that the Transportation Committee is going through right now. So if we were
I'm
to
sorry,
butt
Mr.
our
Chair, point of
motion,
order.
if we're,
Ms. Collins.
I
Sorry,
can't
just
speak,
because of
Mr.
the-
Chair.
No, I know. I have a real point of order. Just because of the delay, I wasn't sure if the member had apologized.
No, I haven't.
No, he had not.
My understanding, Mr. Chair, is that as members of Parliament, we are not supposed to impute motives to our colleagues. Is that correct? I believe
Yeah,
that's
though there's a
correct.
lot of that going on today on all sides. I'm afraid it has been going on all. I don't think Mr. Lloyd. I don't think there was any malice on Mr. Longfield's part. But anyway, let's try not to impugn motive. But I have to let Mr. Longfield.
Yeah, there's
continue.
definitely no malice intended. It's just when we're in a public discussion, we say things in committee that we can use outside of committee.
Pardon me?
But I think really this discussion just needs to happen at the Transport Committee. Because if we take over this study, then we're doing the work of the Transport Committee, which they might not want us to be doing. I think we're waiting to hear back from Transport, and in the meantime, we're trying to get the Bill 73 on our schedule, which is a priority bill.
I would just like to highlight that the independence of each and every unique committee. If they wanted to do the same thing as us, we have fully within our
Of course,
prerogative.
but we can still talk about it.
Yeah, something similar happened with the Industry Committee in the 42nd Parliament, where we were both studying something together and never did bring the two studies under one roof. So then we had two separate things going back to Parliament from the two different committees. I think it's more impactful for the people of the Chippewa Nation for us to have one study and do it well and do it completely. And I think we should be doing that in the Transport Committee.
Okay, Madame Posey.
Écoutez, j'ai l'impression d'être.
I have the impression that we're very far from the top. So I come back to Ms. Collins, and I would like to suggest that we adjourn. I think this is that. Are you asking for a vote to adjourn? Because I think perhaps we'll be calmer next time.
Mr. Ali?
Mr. Point of clarification here, Mr. Chair.
Adjourn, so it's a dilatory motion. We have to vote.
Right, and does that
No.
does that suspend the meeting, or does it suspend the debate on this, or does it adjourn it? And
It adjourns the meeting.
adjourns the meeting. Does it adjourn debate on this subject as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's vote.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, sorry, can you just clarify that a little bit more? What Mr.
Yeah,
Vancouver
so what
said?
happens is if this
Will he-
motion,
What will we be doing at the next meeting?
we'll be doing the net zero accelerator.
Okay, great.
So let's have the vote.
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
But you were done. I thought you were,
No, I wasn't finished.
I thought you were done, Mr. Longfield.
No. And I think we're at the end of the meeting, so maybe we should just suspend the meeting and keep going.
Well, I thought you were done, to be honest, I thought you were done. You know, Madame Posé has called for an adjournment of, we'd gone to Madame Posé. I mean, it was pretty clear we were on Madame Posé. She had the floor. She asked to vote on adjourning the meeting, so we have to do that.
So if we don't adjourn, then we suspend.
No, if we don't adjourn, I will suspend the meeting.
Okay.
I will suspend the meeting. It's different, but I will suspend the meeting.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, you will suspend the meeting. Can you just explain what each scenario means?
If we adjourn, this debate is over until somebody reintroduces the motion. If we suspend, we continue with the debate at the next meeting.
Okay, thanks.
So we're voting on whether we adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Ali?
No.
Madame Chatel?
No.
Mr. Longfield?
No.
Roy? No.
Mr. Vancouverden?
No.
Mr. Datel?
No.
Mr. Leslie?
No.
Mr. Mazur?
No.
Mr. Soroka?
No.
Madame Posé? And Ms. Collins?
No.
I'm suspending the meeting.